In this video, we will learn how to identify type 1 error and type 2 errors. These are the errors that could be potentially made when performing a hypothesis test. A psychologist is studying the self-image of smokers as measured by the self-image SI score from a personality inventory. She would like to examine the mean SI score mu for the population of all smokers. Previously published studies have indicated that the mean SI score for the population of all smokers is 90 and that the standard deviation is 12. But the psychologist believes that the value of the mean has changed. She plans to perform a statistical test. She takes a random sample of SI scores for smokers and computes the sample mean to be 98. Based on the information, answer the questions below. What are the null hypotheses and the alternative hypotheses that should be used for the test? Well, because the psychologist wants to know whether the value has changed, whether the mean has changed, the alternative statement has to say that the mean is not equal to 90, while null hypothesis has to state the other opposite statement, oh no, they're equal to 90. So if we find enough evidence, then we will reject the null hypothesis and say, yes, the mean has changed. Now, in the context of this test, what is a type 2 error? Please remember that the type 2 error says we failed to reject null hypothesis when it's false. Let's say there's some data, we analyzed it, and the null hypothesis happens to be false. Mu is not equal to 90, but we decided to keep null hypothesis anyways for whatever reason. It means that type 2 error is failing to reject the hypothesis that mu is equal to 90 when in fact mu is not equal to 90. Next question, suppose that the psychologist decides to reject the null hypothesis. What sort of error might she be making? Please understand, we are not claiming that she made a mistake. We're just saying if it was a mistake to make this decision, what kind of mistake it was. Is it type 1 or type 2 error? Well, if she decided to reject the null hypothesis, it must be type 1 because type 1 means rejecting null hypothesis when it is true. So the error, if it is there, would be type 1 error. Let's take a look at another example. A coin-operated coffee machine made by a big corporation was designed to discharge a mean of 7.1 ounces of coffee per cup. If it dispenses more than that on average, the corporation may lose money, and if it dispenses less, the customers may complain. Believing that the mean amount of coffee dispensed by the machine mu is less than 7.1 ounces, Big plans to do a statistical test of the claim that the machine is working as designed. Technicians gather a random sample of fill amounts and find that the mean of the sample is 6.9 ounces and that the standard deviation is 0.3 ounces. Based on this information, answer the questions below. The null and alternative hypothesis, what are they? Well, remember, they are suspecting that the mean is less than 7.1 ounces. Here it is. Here's the statement. That will be my alternative hypothesis. Mu is less than 7.1. Null hypothesis has to take the opposite direction. Mu is greater than or equal to 7.1. Right here. In this context, what would be type 1 error? Remember, type 1 error is about rejecting null hypothesis when it shouldn't be rejected. So I'm saying that type 1 error is rejecting the hypothesis mu is, what kind of null hypothesis we have? Greater than or equal to 7.1, when in fact mu is greater than or equal to 7.1. It is actually true, we shouldn't have rejected it. Suppose Big decides to reject the null hypothesis, what sort of error might it be making? Again, rejecting a null hypothesis, if it's false, is a type 1 error.